By the way, quick sidebar. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but because my concern, I feel like nobody watched the Leonardo DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet, but I love it. It's one of my favorite Shakespeare movies. I love it so much. Um, the Leonardo DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet. I hope you did watch it. If we had been in class physically together, we would have all watched it together, and it would have been a lot of fun. And it's one of the things about this semester that I'm very sad about because I like watching Shakespeare movies with my students. Most of the time, because my students are often annoyed to watch Shakespeare movies, but then when they watch them with me, they're like, "Yeah, that was actually pretty good." And sometimes they have questions, and I can answer them while the movie's playing, which I think it really helps. Rather than I can't, it's helpful to sort of be there in the room and see where people are confused or need help, and I can do that, and it makes it more fun because then you can follow what's going on. I don't really, this probably isn't very interesting to you, but if you saw the Romeo and Juliet movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, you may remember Romeo's father. He's kind of a big guy with gray hair. He died just like 2 days ago. Brian Dennehy was the actor's name. He was a famous New York City stage actor. He's primarily known for stage roles, but he was in a lot of movies too. But he was famously Romeo's father. So I don't know why I'm telling you this. I just think it's interesting that an actor in a movie you might have seen this week died this week. So anyway, I don't think he died of COVID, by the way. I didn't actually look up how he died, but I think he was he was like 81. He might have just died. Um, anyway, I don't know. I'm telling you that. Let's go back to the play. So Juliet, her first question is, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Right? Romeo, Romeo, why is your name Romeo? She continues, deny thy father and refuse thy name. See, that's how you can tell what she's thinking about. She's thinking about his name. Romeo's name is a problem for her because Romeo's family is named Montague and Juliet's family is named Capulet, and they are at war with each other. And so she is saying, Romeo, Romeo, why are you named Romeo? And she tells him she wants to love him. So she says, deny thy father and refuse thy name, right? Change your name. Deny thy father because you got your name from your father. Your last name comes from your dad. Refuse your name. Or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. So she says, one of us is going to have to change our names. She says, you change your name, deny your father, and reject your family, and then we can be together. And if you won't do that, I'll reject my family, and we can be together. It's nice that they both immediately love each other in the play. It's love at first sight for both of them, which is nice. Romeo, by the way, she's talking to herself out loud, but he's not supposed to be hearing this, but he is. And he says, shall I hear more or shall I speak at this? I mean, like, should I say something to her now or should I keep listening? He decides to keep listening. And what Juliet says is fascinating, and it's one of the most important things in Shakespeare, and I love it so much. Let's take a look at what Juliet says. Juliet says, "'Tis but thy name that is my enemy," right? The whole problem is his last name means his family's at war with her family. He's not her enemy, but his name, Montague, is thy enemy. "'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague," right? If you didn't have that last name, you'd still be you. What's a Montague, right? The last name. What's it mean to have that name? It is not. It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face. Oh, be some other name belonging to a man. What's in a name? Well, that which we call a rose by any other word would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called. Retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Romeo, doff thy name, and for thy name, which is no part of thee, take all myself. So she said, right? She says here, listen, um, she says, it's just the name that's the enemy. So change it. She says, you're thyself, though not a Montague. Right? If you didn't have that last name, you'd still be you, and that's the person that I love. She says, what's a Montague? It's just a name. It's not a hand or a foot or an arm or a face. Some other name belonging to a man. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Meaning, right, roses are roses. If you called them something else, they would still smell good. And she said Romeo would still be a great person that she wants to marry if he had a different name. He would still retain that perfection which he owes without that title. She says, Romeo, give up your name. And if you give up that name, which is no part of thee, right? Because names are really external. It's not who you are. It's just a label someone attached to you. It's no part of you. It's just what people call you. And if you get rid of that name, she'll take him as her love. Now, the important thing here, is central to my whole argument in Romeo and Juliet, is really this little speech here. It's this. She is so much smarter than he is. If you saw the Romeo and Juliet movie, which I love, the Baz Luhrmann movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, it's a great movie. I love it so much. It's actually one of my very favorite Shakespeare movies. It's definitely one of my very top Shakespeare films. But they do edit. They cut out a lot of Juliet's lines. And when they cut out Juliet's lines, it really makes her appear less smart. But when you read the play, the actual words she has in the play, she's brilliant. Romeo is thinking about her, and he's like, "Oh, your face is like the sun that would light up the sky. Your eyes are like stars that shine so brightly. To me, you are like an angel in the heavens. And oh, you have a glove that touches your skin. If only I were that glove." That's what Romeo says. That is standard, normal shit that poets write about in love. Romeo has been reading too many books of love poetry, and when he talks, he basically repeats standard love poetry shit. But Juliet is much, much smarter. Juliet, when she thinks about him, she thinks philosophy. She's thinking about, well, what is the relationship between names and people? Right? I mean, a person has a name, but the name isn't who they are. Well, that's a kind of complicated thought to have. The king of the country might disagree. If you change the king's name to some other name, he wouldn't be king anymore. He might be pretty pissed off about that. The king takes great pride in his name, but Juliet feels like, you know what? When you think about it, really, names don't fucking matter. And a lot of people, rich people, by the way, who can trace their family line back, they take their name real seriously. Juliet says names don't really matter that much. I mean, a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet, so what the fuck is in a name? Who cares about names? The only reason her families are at war is because of names. So change your name. I'll change my name. Juliet is absolutely brilliant. Romeo is repeating bad standard love poetry that everybody says because he's been reading too many love poetry books. But Juliet is like a philosopher, and she's thinking about bigger, more interesting things, which is the relationship between words and things. And please notice that Shakespeare is a guy who cares a lot about words. And he's the guy that wrote all these words, so many words. He wrote 39 plays, and they're filled with words. He wrote poems, and they're filled with words. Juliet is wondering, what is the relationship between words and things, right? Is a name, when you think about who you are really, do words or language have anything to do with it? Or are you yourself, even if you had another name? Juliet is a philosopher, and she's absolutely brilliant, and she's amazing, and she's interesting. And Romeo can barely keep up with her. But this is the point at which Romeo decides to speak, because she has just said that she will love him if he just they change your name, we'll run away together. So she's basically confessed her love for him. And Romeo begins to speak because he's so excited. "I'll take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth I never will be Romeo." Baptizing is when you get your name at the baptismal font, and he says, "I love you. If you call me love, and I'll change my name." And she has no idea who this is because he scared her because he's been hiding while she said this. She says, what man art thou that thus bescreened tonight stumblest on my counsel?" She doesn't know who he is because he's hiding, and it's dark, and it's hard to see. He says, "By a name I know not how to tell thee who I am," right? Because her whole complaint was that she wishes he had another name. Well, his answer to her question, "Who are you?" is his name. But she says, "He's my name, dear saint." There's that cliched language again. "My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself because it is an enemy to thee." Right? I hate my own name because you don't like it. "Had I it written, I would tear the word." And she says, "My ears have not yet drunk 100 words of thy tongue's uttering, yet I know the sound. Art thou not Romeo and a Montague?" And he says, "Neither, fair maid, if either thee dislike." Meaning, those are my names, but I won't be called by that. If you don't like those two names, I'm going to get rid of them. She said something brilliant about names. And Romeo is inspired to change how he talks. And he starts talking the way she talks. He starts talking about names, and are names useful? And you know what? You don't like my name? I'll change my name. And she says, "What's your name?" And he says, "I don't know if I should answer you. You just got through saying you don't like my name. Let's get a new one for me." So Juliet is much, much smarter, and she is a much more powerful. Her love is so much more powerful than his, and her brain is so much more powerful than his, and he's really doing his best to keep up. He's doing pretty good so far. He immediately gets onto her word thing, but we will continue this in the next video.